In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most gracious. Dear students, our today's topic is osmoregulation. You need to know the definition of osmoregulation. It is basically the maintenance of a constant osmotic condition, and the osmotic conditions are the concentrations of water and solutes in the body. Solutes are the salts, ions, and the electrolytes. Today we will talk about osmoregulation, that how osmoregulation is maintained in different environments, and how the balance of water and salts is maintained in different animals. First of all, the difference between osmoregulators and osmoconfirmers. Osmoconfirmers are the organisms whose body fluids are kept isotonic to the external environment. Such animals are known as osmoconfirmers. Isotonic means the concentration of the salts or the concentration of the solutes inside the body of the organism is same with respect to the concentration of solutes in the solution in which the organism is present. So for example, if we compare the osmolarity of two different solutions and it is kept same, it means the two solutions are isotonic. Another definition is for osmoregulators. These are the animals whose body fluid concentrations differ with the outside environment, and the concentration of their fluid which is present inside their bodies can be hypotonic or hypertonic. I hope you are familiar with these two terms, hypertonic and hypotonic. Hyper means the solution in which the concentration of solutes is more, and hypotonic is the solution which is more dilute, means which contains less concentration of solutes. So today we will discuss how different animals react in different environments towards the changes. Osmoregulators are those animals that can maintain internal osmotic concentrations. So these type of organisms can adjust in different situations or in different environments. Such animals are hypotonic or hypertonic, as I have already told you that the solute concentration in their body fluids can increase or decrease according to the surrounding environments. And the examples of osmoregulators are almost all of the freshwater animals and some of the marine vertebrates. Then here is the example of the osmoregulators in different environments. For example, in the first picture you can see the salt water or the marine water. Marine water is related to the sea, in which the concentration of solutes is very high. Second is the example of a freshwater organism in which the concentration of solutes is less and more dilute solution is present. And the last organism is from land or called the terrestrial animal. So one by one we will discuss all three different environments and the organisms that belong to these different environments, and how do they adjust to the osmotic concentrations and maintain a balance in their bodies. Now, osmoconfirmers, as I have already told you the definition, so we will talk about their features and their examples. These are isotonic to the external environment, means there is no net diffusion of the solutes or the molecules of salts, ions or other electrolytes. Overall, there is no net movement of the molecules. And the examples are all marine invertebrates and some freshwater invertebrates. So when we talked about osmoregulators, we said that they include the marine vertebrates and most of the freshwater organisms. Some marine vertebrates like Mixini, that is called hagfish, its common name is hagfish, and elasmobranchs, the sharks and rays are the examples of osmoconfirmers. You can see one of the organism which belong to the group osmoconfirmers. Another example of the osmoconfirmers. Now, osmolytes are the urea and trimethylamine oxide. They increase osmotic concentration. Now, in the yellow box of your book, the problems are given which are faced by osmoregulators. The freshwater animals live in a hypotonic environment. Therefore, what happens? Obviously, the entry of water will be from outside to the inside of the body of the organisms. So, water constantly enters into the body of the organism of the freshwater, and they face a severe deficiency of the salts in their body. Marine teleosts are the bony fishes. They are hypotonic to the sea water. Now the difference is freshwater animals lives in hypotonic environment. On the other hand, the bony fishes are hypotonic to the sea water because the sea water contains a lot of salts and electrolytes in its water. Now these fishes, they have the tendency to lose water to the environment. Marine water is a kind of water in which salts are present, and in marine water different types of fishes are present and different types of other organisms are also present which are not fishes. Now if we talk about hagfish, that is a marine fish which has a unique character of keeping its internal body environment isotonic. The surrounding water is marine, so it contains salts and electrolytes. But despite of it, the fish keeps its body as isotonic. That is why its survival rate is much more as compared to other fishes. Besides this, the other cartilaginous fishes also has this property that if the nitrogen level rises in their body, they excrete it and maintain their balance. Now coming back to the topic, similarly we have another fish that is called bony fish, and it has a unique characteristic of immediately releasing urea and nitrogen which can affect the body of the bony fishes. In the yellow box, you can see osmoregulation has made the survival easy for many marine organisms. And why is so? I will explain it later. Terrestrial organisms, they are hypotonic to the outer environment, and the evaporation of water that leads to dehydration is the major problem faced by them. So the terrestrial animals, they are just like the xerophytic plants, in which they face severe dehydration. The adaptations of osmoregulation in different animals. If we talk about the freshwater animals, which are found in rivers, lakes, streams, are the protozoans. For example, amoeba and paramecium. Now these organisms has a very specific structure which are called the contractile vacuoles, which eliminates waste materials to avoid any form of the harm in their bodies. The adaptations of the freshwater organisms are these animals deals with the problems. One of the problems is they produce large volumes of diluted urine because they live in an environment that is hypotonic to their bodies. So obviously a lot of water will enter in their bodies, and as a result they will produce large amounts of dilute urine, and consequently the essential salts will excrete out of their body. Their kidneys reabsorbs the salts. This is the adaptation that their kidneys has developed. Salts are also obtained from the food that they eat. So they specifically choose their food that contains a lot of water. That contains a lot of salt, and they actively transports salts from the external dilute medium with the help of special salt cells which are called ionocytes. They have these cells in their bodies to capture maximum amount of salts from their water environment. These ionocytes are found in amphibian skin and the gills of the fishes. You can see osmoregulation in freshwater fish. The gain of water takes place from their mouths and some ions which are present in their food. Uptake of the salt ions is also taken place through their gills. And the osmotic water gain through gills and other parts of the body surface. So the excretion of salt ions and large amounts of water in dilute urine from the kidneys. So this is how the osmoregulation is operated in the freshwater organisms which lives in a hypotonic solution. Now the adaptations of the marine animals. In order to replace the water loss, these fishes usually drink large amount of water because they live in an environment that contains most of the solute and salts and the other electrolytes. And the problems of the excess salts in the body is due to drinking of the sea water, which is abundant in the amount of salts and electrolytes. And the ions like sodium and chloride and some of the potassium are removed across the gill epithelium. And the divalent ions like magnesium and calcium are excreted by the kidneys. So, in the marine environment, they need to hold more water instead of the salts because they already are abundantly present. These fishes also have special salt secreting glands, and these are called the rectal glands that I was already telling you. Rectal glands removes the salt remains from the body. Side by side, on and off, they remove the excessive salt which can harm the body of the organism or the fish which lives in the marine habitat. Now you can see the osmoregulation phenomenon in a marine fish. Gain of water which contains excessive salts and ions from the food through their mouth. Excretion of salt ions from the gills. Osmotic loss through the gills and other parts of the body surface. Excretion of the salt ions and small amounts of water in scanty urine from the kidneys because they contain less urine and that is highly concentrated, plus gain of water and salt ions from drinking seawater. Now finally, the terrestrial animals, the most important feature of the terrestrial organisms is that they do not let the water to go out from their bodies, and the perfect example is the kangaroo rat. Another important characteristic is found in terrestrial organisms, and that is anhydrobiosis. Now, what is anhydrobiosis? It is basically a unique characteristic that can withstand the dehydration to a larger extent and to tolerate the dehydration in the external environment. So, the adaptations to reduce water loss in the terrestrial organisms are the presence of chitinous exoskeleton, means their exoskeleton is made up of a tough material that is called chitin, which reduces the loss of water from their skin, and the dead keratinized skin in the vertebrates, just like us and other animals. Now, the definition of anhydrobiosis again, in the desert animals that can tolerate against strong degree of dehydration by special metabolic and behavioral adaptation. This characteristic is called anhydrobiosis. And the example is kangaroo rat. Thank you.